even if she were to prove that, she's slandered me like a million times on the internet. Like she's done so many lives in the last 2 years where she calls me a psychopath, says I belong in a mental institution, I should be carried out in a gurney, or I should be in jail, or she compared me to some Jeffrey Dahmer who is a serial killer that like eats people.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
Carmela, it's been a really scintillating last 11, 12 days, and it hit me last night. I was in the hospital. My father, your husband, unfortunately, has been in the hospital. He's making a little comeback right now, but
in ICU he was.
He was in ICU, now he's been moved, and under the darkness of night in room 419, with the din of hospital monitors beeping, and I was working on a book, which will be called Surviving the Survivor, something about conversations with my Holocaust mother. I'm writing this book, and you were relaying a story to me about how, although you're a Holocaust survivor, someone accused you of being a second-class survivor because you didn't go to a camp and you didn't have to do some crazy things. So I'm typing up about how this woman says that someone she knew was hiding in a coffin and another was hiding in a pig carcass. And as I'm typing this, I look over and see my father, a little ashen with the monitors beeping, and it finally all hit me. And I was like, I can't take this anymore. And I called you, and what did you say to me?
I said to you, he will be better tomorrow, and he is.
And miraculously, they got him out of that damn bed. I didn't know this, you get delirium in the hospital, especially at an older age.
Okay, but this is going to be a session about nursing homes.
Yeah, so we should get a nursing home sponsor as well. And so...
Now we are laughing from the tension release, because it was very, very touch and go for
anyway, but thank God he's doing better. You were optimistic as always. Whatever. And life is hell. That's the moral of the story.
No, life is tough, so be tender.
And speaking of life being hell, it gets even worse when you hear the story that's coming up on the main schmooze. We've got Emily Gellis Lande. You know her now because we already recorded that segment, but she is in an Instagram battle with a woman named Tanya Zuckerbrot, and you're going to hear all about it next.
From Emily's perspective.
And think of it this way. You could be sleeping in a pig carcass, so just be glad it's a battle over a fiber diet.
Exactly.
Right back with the main schmooze.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Carm, in your day and age, there was no such thing as Instagram, as far as I know. Did they have Instagram in Subotica, Yugoslavia in 1939?
They had no TV.
No TV. Did you have a car? It was horse and buggy, I believe.
Horse and buggy.
Well, it is kind of crazy how times have changed. We're one generation away. Emily is younger than I am, so let's say 2 generations. But we are now joined momentarily by a woman named Emily Gellis Lande. Have you heard of her before?
Not before this time, but then I don't know that much about... I follow certain people, but now I'm going to follow you.
My young, beautiful wife had heard about this.
She's so
I
much
married young because I'm smart, and she's addicted to Instagram, so she knew about Emily. I don't think Dad wouldn't know about Emily either, but let's tell the audience who she is. Her 182,000 and counting Instagram followers clearly make Emily Gellis Lande a modern-day influencer. In Carm's day, as I just mentioned, you needed a milk crate and a megaphone to get noticed, but that's no longer the case. Luckily for you, Carm, you have a very high-pitched, distinctive voice. It was strong enough to make yourself an influencer before it was so influential, Carm, so congrats to you. You were kind of on Instagram without knowing it. But back to Emily. Unlike so many vapid millennials taking moronic pictures of themselves sipping on high-calorie mojitos, Gellis Lande is using her internet pulpit to expose what she considers a dangerous diet, the F factor. Carm, had you heard of the F factor?
Yes, now I heard.
No, but prior to this, you never heard of it, and I never heard of it either.
No,
So,
or it might have meant something different.
so the F factor was founded, ironically, by another Great Neck, Long Island native and also an influencer named Tanya Zuckerbrot, which the last name is not a. Some names are very like friendly, and I don't know, but Zuckerbrot reminds me of bratwurst, so I don't know. That's just an aside. Now, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, they had the Thrilla in Manila. Roberto Duran had his no mas boxing match with Sugar Ray Leonard. And now we have Gellis Lande saying, bring it on to Zuckerbrot in the modern era. So, Emily, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. I want to tell you that somebody actually told me that Zuckerbrot means sugar bread or something like that in German, which is really funny if you know anything about the time.
The irony
That's
of her
a no in her lexicon.
Carm,
Yeah.
do you know that? Do you know enough German?
No,
to,
I hate German, the language, and I don't like the people that much either as a prejudice.
In fairness to Zuckerbrot, she's not a German. But what I'm going to point out right off the bat, I'm not pinning you two against each other, but you currently have 180,000 plus followers, where I was assured that Zuckerbrot would have more than you, and I went to check that. I went to check the tail of the tape, if you will.
Yeah.
And Zuckerbrot, Carm, is only at 115,000 followers. So Emily, who agreed to do the show,
I got it. You don't have to spell it.
So, Emily, let's start right off the bat. What is the very latest with your saga and the F Factor diet? Bring us up to speed here.
No, wait a second. What about the background first?
We're going to get to that, Carm. I'm a news guy, so I always start with the latest, and then we'll work back. So if you guys don't know about it, I don't do things linearly, Carm. So what's the very latest? And then we'll get into the details of what happened.
What's the latest? The latest is, the lawsuits have been going. So there's two lawsuits. The first one that was filed October 2020 has not had much movement. It's like approaching the discovery phase, which would be like depositions and all that stuff. So that's kind of like where it is. I don't know exactly where it's going to go or like how it's going to land, because things have been very backed up and very slow in the court system here, especially since COVID. So there's that case. Like my attorneys had filed to have the second lawsuit, which was like a personal one. The first one is for damages against the company. The second one is like personal, whatever. It's ridiculous. But so
the first one the defamation suit, the $500,000 defamation suit? Okay.
Yeah.
And the second one
is $250,000 for like the same thing effectively, but it's her persona, like her personal damage that she has suffered. So,
gotcha. So the two lawsuits are both on her end aimed at you.
Yeah, well, okay. I countersued her from the first lawsuit, so that that's pending. I think it's like really embarrassing. Like my dad's a civil litigator, and I've been to court with him many times, and I would be absolutely mortified to stand in front of a judge and like answer questions about this case, because the defense against defamation is a truth. So she would have to prove that I acted with malice, or like I purposefully knew something was false, but I decided to lie and say it anyway, which I would never do. And also, like, even if she thought I slandered her, which I didn't, and she claims to be a public figure, so the standard is very high for defamation. But even if she were to prove that, she's slandered me like a million times on the internet. Like she has done so many lives in the last 2 years where she calls me a psychopath, says I belong in a mental institution, I should be carried out in a gurney, or I should be in jail, or she compared me to some Jeffrey Dahmer who is a serial killer that like eats people. Like she said so many crazy, horrific things about me. So I'm just for that alone, I just feel like a judge is going to be like, what a waste of my time. Like, this isn't like the playground, like, go sort it out like elsewhere. It's embarrassing. So yeah, I don't know.
But wait a second.
Yeah.
Roy, I was told not to interrupt our guests. I apologize.
And right away she interrupts.
I did. I will not do it again. Mea culpa, mea culpa.
Yeah.
But this whole thing went down in 2020.
2020. So Carm, you brought up an excellent point. There's going to be a lot of people listening to our global audience that's not really privy to what is going on. So let's now take a half step back. Let me kind of set the table, and I'm going to let Emily take over. But Tanya Zuckerbrot is what one would describe as I would say, as a New York Post Manhattan socialite. She's incredibly wealthy, married to a very, very, very wealthy man. I'm not jealous at all. They live in a $22.5 million duplex in Manhattan, the whole typical Manhattan thing. It's her second husband. She's living this glamorous life. Many years ago, I think it was close to 20 years ago, she started working on this diet called the F Factor. On Instagram, if you look at her account, she describes herself as a, quote, leading authority on weight loss in management. And the whole basis of this diet was unusual, but it comes down, the reason it's called the F Factor is it was all about eating fiber that would fill you, and then you could then have other things. And then Emily became aware of this diet, and the two of them, I think, met at one point, and Emily tried it and had a really horrendous experience. And that's how it's kind of the genesis of how Emily meets Tanya Zuckerbrot. Am I at all correct in this?
So, I mean, just a broader stroke. Well, first of all, this diet was actually created by somebody, I think in the 1980s, I want to say, called the F Plan, some British lady. Tanya just really kind of repackages her book and makes it like sexier and like modern day. I mean, also it's mainly based on fiber. So like a lot of dietitians, and doctors will talk to you about the benefits of fiber. So there's nothing really new there. I never really tried her diet in full. I tried some of the components that she promotes, which were these GG crackers, which that I did not have a great reaction to at all. And then
what is a GG crack? I never heard of this. And yesterday I listened to, by the way, Fed Up is an excellent podcast that is about this battle.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned about GG crackers. But for people like me, what is a GG cracker?
I don't know. It's some Scandinavian cardboard type cracker.
It's like really
like a water
it's
cracker?
It's like a Vasa cracker. You know the Vasa
but worse.
cracker?
No, Wasa cracker tastes like ice cream compared to that. Wasa's way better. You guys got to try it. You will. It's
Carm can't say her W's. That's why she called it Vasa. But
I know what she meant.
They pronounce it like that in Scandinavia.
Vasa.
Yeah, it's not good, but they're not supposed to be good, according to the guy who owns the distribution license in North America. He told me people don't eat them because they're good. They eat them because they make them feel full and they help them lose weight. So it's not supposed to be about the taste. So whatever. I hated them. I had very bad gas from them, like very painful. So I was like, I don't like this. That was the end of that. And then Tanya was always making these waffles like every day. And I love carbs. I love a good waffle. So I bought her powder to try and make these waffles. And to me, it just tasted like synthetic-y. It didn't have I don't like a lot of Splenda. I don't even know if she put Splenda in it, but like that type of like fake sugar, I can really taste it. So I didn't like it. And that was the end of it for me. But it comes back around in April or May of 2020 when I hear about complaints from former employees or people that had worked for her or people that were her clients, just saying a lot of negative things about her. in the work environment. That's the first thing I hear about it. And then there are these anonymous accounts that popped up on Instagram in the summer of 2020 calling out negative adverse side effects that people were alleging they were getting as a result of the diet, such as like losing their hair, like extreme bloating, like going to the emergency room. And that's kind of when I started again, like researching like what was going on like with this diet.
Had you met her at this point? Did you go to something where she was speaking and she accused you of
in Cipriani, the birthday party?
Yeah, so we met each other when I randomly, like I was at a lunch, like if you're familiar with New York, like I was at a downtown lunch at Cipriani. It was my birthday. A friend was taking me out. So she happened to come and sit next to me, but I didn't know who she was. And when she saw me taking a video of the birthday cake and being like, oh, I need to do this again, influencer life, I guess her ears perked up. She chimed in. She said to me like, oh, I heard you say you're an influencer. I said, yeah. She said, I should follow you. I said, cool. She followed me. I was being polite. I followed her back. And then I like invited her to a Poppy event. Like one time she said she couldn't come. I sent her some product. Like Poppy is a skincare company that I co-own. And then that was it. There was no other, where it's Jewish geography where she's older than me. So I'm 36. She's 51 maybe, or I don't know, 50 or something. So she's 15, 16 years older than me. So we don't run in the same circles, but I know people that know her, and I'm sure she knows people the same way that know me. And we both came from Great Neck. So yeah, like we're 1 degree of separation from each other, but not people that would have ever socialized or like hung out, if not for in the influencer space. But I really was more in the fashion influencer space and she's more in the dietetic world. So we don't really have a ton of crossover there. So yeah.
And what was your honest first impression before you guys went to war? I mean, were you just like, she was talking. No, she was. Her diamond ring is huge. Like it's blinding. Like you can't like miss it. I mean, the thing is like ginormous. And I mean, she reminds me of like an Upper East Side lady. Like, like she cares about material goods. And like, she was talking at that lunch about like depositions going on in her now husband's divorce at the time, I think. And she was referring to like a lot of what other people I think would think were kind of material, like snobby things. But like as a New Yorker, you hear so many things. Like nothing she said struck me as like, oh my God, like this is crazy. It was just like a New York. She was gossiping kind of with her friend, and that was kind of it. It was like harmless in that moment. I didn't think that much of it. And she later accused you of fangirling her. You know what that is?
Oh my God.
I would imagine that he acts like a fan.
Yeah, I do that with you. I do that with UFC fighters. I fanboy them, but this was fangirling.
But that means that they follow them and comment on them all the time, or what?
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. But so, Emily, I did a lot of homework. So I don't want you glossed over some of this, but Carm, close your ears for a minute. It's called
I can handle it.
So, Emily started to hear about all these side effects on the podcast Fed Up. For those of you who are offended, please earmuff for a moment. Emily described it as being stabbed in the asshole when she had this, she experienced this diet. Other people said that they were, quote, sick after F Factor. I shit myself. I developed an eating disorder. I had rashes. I shit blood. They allegedly caused the diet bars from the F Factor, according to these people, not us, according to these people, cause health issues, including cramping, bloating, gas, rashes, along with more serious allegations about people having to have part of their colon removed, accusations that F Factor led some who used the program to develop these eating disorders that I just mentioned. And you, once you spoke out, you started to hear from these people, correct?
Yeah, I first just like touched upon like the things that I was hearing, like some of the allegations that you just mentioned. And then after that, I kind of was hoping that the press would pick up the story so that I wouldn't have to be the one to kind of like delve into it. But for some reason they weren't, like nobody was picking it up. It was like really weird. And like, I'm not a journalist. I'm not an investigator. Like I'm not trained in that. But it became apparent to me that like there were all these people that had all these complaints, and they like were getting sick, or like they were scared, like they didn't know what was wrong with them. And I kind of wanted it to be like a message board for people to see what other people's complaints were in case they had some similarities. And maybe I could connect to people if they had both experienced something similar. So that's kind of what it became. And then eventually the press ended up picking it up. And then, you know, it took them time though. And it was like, I was getting this influx, tremendous. I was getting hundreds, thousands of messages a day. I could barely keep up with them. So it became very overwhelming, and I just wanted to post them and add them as a highlight on my page so that they could live there forever, documented. So if in the future, when they might need to be used in some sort of legal capacity, that they would be there like forever.
Let's take a quick pause. Carm, what is your take up to this point? I'm just curious because you come from, as you said, no cars, horse and buggy, no television.
Listen, would you do me a favor? Move the thing.
And this is now raging in New York among the Manhattan elite. What is your take?
I tell you, I have 5
granddaughters
from my daughter who are in their, well, the 15-year-old could be 25-year-old, but they range between 15 and almost 29.
And 2 granddaughters from me.
No, but forget about
and the only grandson.
That's
from
irrelevant
me.
for this conversation.
Sorry,
totally.
Go on.
So these girls teach me a lot of different things, even though they live all over, but not in Florida. But we are in touch. And I know that, you know, like I know Lizzie Savetsky. Do you know Lizzie Savetsky?
She does F Factor.
She does.
Wait a second.
She was on our show.
She's a big Tanya Zuckerbrot fan. So.
Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. I check her, and she was my first Instagram person that I followed because of the grandchildren.
Okay.
And her fashion and she just yesterday there were things that she's moving into Manhattan. So I don't know if you're aware of that.
Carm's Instagram is on.
This is an insider information for you.
No, I knew that.
So what I think, can I just say 1 minute?
Hold on, Lizzie's moving to New York?
She is already moved in yesterday.
God help us.
She wants to be on the Real Housewives of New York, so that's why.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. May I say something to you?
Carm, get to the point. I asked you, what do you think of this whole influencer world?
If you interrupt me, I cannot finish my thing. And Joel always feels I'm
not asking about the specifics of the case. You're very long-winded. You're like Anderson Cooper.
No, but this whole internet thing is...
What do you think? Yes.
Is fascinating to me because it created a whole new world that didn't exist. When did Instagram start?
Around 2012, 2013.
So that's probably for you old. But for the world, it's a very new phenomenon. And there is a whole world of competitions, envies, jealousies, sales.
There's also money making.
That's what I said. Sales is money. Okay. But may I ask you one other question while I have the microphone? Does Tanya, I call her Tanya because the name is too complicated. Does Tanya's packaging, does it says on it that we are not responsible for... I know that I think they check...
We're not responsible for eating disorders and removal of intestines.
No. But I know that she once tried to prove that she has it tested before she...
Well, listen, this is important, actually. So the Zuckerbrot response to all of these allegations from her attorneys was not one doctor of any alleged victim, and that's in quotes, ever contacted the company or spoke to the media elsewhere. These quote-unquote victims never showed any proof that their symptoms were caused by F-Factor products. A spokesperson for F-Factor told, this is according to the Daily Beast now, that out of 176,000 purchase orders since 2018, they received only 50 complaints, which is very minor, about gastric distress or rashes. And a third-party toxicology report commissioned by F Factor concluded in September 2020 that there is no evidence that F Factor fiber/protein powders and bars pose a toxicological risk to consumers. But it is important to note that once this all came to light, F Factor claims that their revenue dropped from $1 million a month to less than $90,000 a month, which again goes to show you the power of Instagram and Emily. Before I forget any of this, because this to me was, for our show, the most astonishing thing of all, and Emily, you'll help clarify this. Tanya Zuckerbrot, a Jewish woman, at one point said to her devotees, she said, if Holocaust survivors could go into concentration camps and lose weight, you could too. Do not take antidepressants. What was that about?
I didn't get that. Did you get that?
Emily, please clarify that for us.
Yeah, so this is a conversation that took place between this woman named, her Instagram name was Jewel the Bee. Her name is Julianne Ashero. She was a private client of Tanya Zuckerbrot. And allegedly, I've heard this firsthand from Jewel. Jewel says that Tanya told her that if people who were in the Holocaust could survive with, not eating, that you could survive like eating less, basically. And Jewel was on an antidepressant. And there are some antidepressants that cause weight gain. Like that's a known, thing, like that could be a side effect. And Jewel was having a hard time. She was taking this antidepressant, and the advice that she says was given to her allegedly was that maybe she should consider not taking the antidepressant to avoid the weight gain. So initially I addressed that on my page, not knowing Jewel. I just saw the anonymous tip about that. And of course the Holocaust statement, I'm Jewish, is beyond offensive, but I actually was focused on the other part of it just because, there's already a huge stigma around mental health and antidepressants and everything.
Absolutely.
But the idea that a non-licensed medical professional like Tanya Zuckerbrot is not a psychiatrist would tell somebody maybe don't take a medicine that you need because you might gain weight was so horrific to me. And I thought that could actually be like life-threatening to somebody, because if you need an antidepressant, which I take anti-anxiety medication and it's helped me tremendously in my life, I'm a big mental health advocate. So if you take an antidepressant and it helps you, the idea that because you might gain a little bit of weight, you should not take it, it was very alarming to me. So I addressed that point actually first and foremost. And then when Jewel told me this story about the Holocaust, it's almost like, it's so horrific. It's hard to believe that it would come out of somebody's mouth. It really is.
Carm, when your father, Lotzi Chrishaber, may he rest in peace, when he was in Auschwitz.
That's your grandfather.
My grandfather. Any witnesses talk about the difficulty he had in losing weight while at
Auschwitz?
Does this offend you, Carm? As a Holocaust survivor, does this offend you?
Very, very
that a fellow Jew is
It's so absurd that it's so absurd, like we are attacking people when they say something about the Holocaust, and these people just say like things in the air just because they're Jewish. They think they can say it, because if I'm Jewish, I can talk about the Holocaust. But it's too stupid to even dwell on it. Let's proceed.
Yeah.
By the way, Carm, last episode, or many episodes, you've spit out Ricolas, the cough drop on air. Just now, you just blew your nose into a Kleenex while we're in an audio platform. So I'm gonna. Actually,
I live my life.
I'm going to take lemons and make it. I'm going to approach Kleenex and see if they want to sponsor the show as well as
Brilliant.
That is smart, right?
So
we are asking Ricola and Kleenex so far.
These are great sponsors. You laugh, but
wait a minute, I'm going to drink water.
What?
Say something about water because.
No, so Emily did all this, and there's another interesting story, but Emily has her own attorney who spoke to the Daily Beast, and you can you can clarify this as well, named Henry Kaufman. Is that right? Is he still your attorney?
Yes.
And he said about the F Factor case that they wanted to sue Emily for posting information of great public interest and concern about an extreme and popular diet and related to their products, he added. But he says it was newsworthy information and it's protected by the great First Amendment. The public interest is the greatest gambit, or he says ambit here, or free expression. I've never heard of that word, so I apologize. But anyway, it's kind of... Does Emily, I mean, not Emily, I'm sorry. Does Tanya have any training as a nutritionist? Like,
yes, I think.
Does she have a medical background? Do you know?
I mean, she's went to, I guess, like nutrition school. It's like diet. It's a master's program, I think, from NYU. But I mean, you know, she's not a doctor. Like, she's not, I don't know. She's not, I think her ego precedes her, and she feels, sometimes I listen to her talk and it's like, I feel like, oh my God, she's speaking about things as if she's the first person to land on the moon, you know, or like taking, you know, the spaceship to Mars. Like, it's like she makes everyone, she has a way of repetition and a way of repeating things over and over again. And it's, to me, feels like a brainwashing type of tactic where, like, if you do this diet, if you eat this way, blah, 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 like all these other things will happen. But yeah, I mean, she has a degree, but you know, listen, everything changes over time, you know, like to your point about when your mom was growing up, like technology changes, like everything evolves, and people need to evolve with the times or you get left behind. You know, if you can still preach about something that people were doing in the 1900s, it doesn't mean it's relevant today. You know, I make this comparison. People used to smoke cigarettes and doctors used to advertise cigarettes. There was no warning. This was a business. But look at 2022, you know, in Europe, they put a picture of what can happen to you if you smoke on the label. So my whole thing is, you know, she could have just admitted that, like, maybe she made a mistake. Maybe, you know, the big thing that I think is going to come out of it is that not only are these protein powders not regulated by the FDA or anyone for that matter, there's no serving size recommendation. And I think that's the biggest thing. People take things very literally on the internet. So where I might know that I'm showing somebody, you know, what I'm eating in a day, I know, okay, I'm having a bite here, a bite there. These people were taking it very literally. Oh, she's eating powder in her coffee. Then she has powder in her smoothie. Then she has powder in her waffle. Then she has powder in her salad dressing. Then she has powder in her tomato sauce. Some people were putting 5, 6, 7, 8 servings of this stuff in their food every single day. Now, the problem or the disconnect is when they were getting sick and they were going to the doctors don't really ask you what protein powder are you using and are you putting it in your tomato sauce? Like
she keeps making a slip. She calls it protein powder, but it is
fiber powder.
Powder.
Well, it's a fiber protein powder. That's what she calls it.
Okay.
Fiber and protein. So she sells it as a protein powder, but it's special. She says it's special because it's protein and fiber. Like, that's her thing. But people were getting really sick. And I think it's a serving size recommendation is a huge thing. And also, you know, in California, you have to put a Prop 65 warning on something if it has lead in it. And she does. She has a Prop 65 warning. So, you know, is that really something you want to be eating a serving of lead? I don't know, 5, 6, 7, even if it's safe. People are very naive about some things, you know, just because it's safe, it's not regulated. So how do you know it's safe? It's a very slippery slope, in my opinion.
I mean, in fairness, the whole world of like supplementation and, you know, gym rats and all that, most of that is unregulated. But Carmela, go ahead.
No, but now I wanted to say something. As usual, you cut me off. Doesn't matter. We always cut each other off. And I forgot what I wanted.
This happens a lot now.
I will come back and then I'll interrupt.
I just thought of two more sponsors. Nuriva for your brain lapse, Carmela. We can reach out to them. And also, Carm, you and my wonderful father, and even my shout out to my wife, Ileana Bugsy Waldman. You guys take Metamucil.
Yes, no, we don't take Metamucil. We take something worse, Miralax.
Miralax. So whatever happened to good old scoop
But
of
I
Miralax?
take a half a thing of Miralax. Everybody, it works.
Hey, Miralax, we're a top 3% podcast in the world. Come sponsor. Go ahead.
And I'm a regular taker of
Kleenex, Ricola, Miralax, Metamucil. They should all be sponsored. Carm, what were you going to say?
That we were talking about what? Now you interrupted me again. No, I tell you, my husband is in the hospital and I'm not myself. So that he was in the critical before. Now he's okay.
Carm, you told me you didn't want to talk about it.
No, I want to talk about it because my brain is not working right.
So
wait
Emily,
1 second. Shut a minute.
You can't stop, Carm. This is
I wanted to say two things. One is that Tanya's product allegedly has some what is the metal that you are not supposed to have? What is on the walls and in poor places and people?
Arsenic and lead.
Yeah, they have lead, and she claims that lead is a natural part of all natural resources. So she gets out of it that way. But if people do what you are saying, and I believe you, and I know that people are like that, they don't only take half a spoon like I take the Miralax, but they take 7-8 spoonfuls over a period of time. Obviously, they build up their arsenal in their stomach, and it's dangerous. So
their arsenal of arsenic.
The arsenal of arsenic. So obviously, it's not a good idea not to regulate it. And probably she could get out of it by saying, well, the people misunderstood. But the right thing would be that some kind of an agency or somebody would regulate it, and say you can only take 3 spoonfuls. Because probably the logic of the people is if I take 1 spoonful, I lose a pound. If I take 10 spoonfuls, I lose 10 pounds, so
people will, and women especially, and I can understand this, will go to lots of extremes to lose weight, especially if they think they could have a quick fix or it's something fast. Women, when you're vulnerable and you feel not great, they will do extreme things. The diet industry is a billion, trillion dollar industry, not for nothing. And that is all true, but it doesn't mean it's safe. So there should be a governing body of some sort to regulate all these supplements. And there should also be a warning, listen, like there is on cigarettes, cigarettes can kill you. If you still want to smoke, go for it. But just know that you might end up with lung cancer. It's the same thing. If you want to eat 10 spoonfuls of this a day, just know you might end up having XYZ complaints.
I was also thinking that she's been running this business for how long?
Close to 20 years.
Over 20 years, but the product since 2018. So that's new.
Okay, my thought about going from 1 million to 90,000, I don't think you can take all the credit for that. I really don't. I think it's the fickleness of the dieting public, and after a while they get totally sick from one thing that tasted like SHIT, and they go for something else that tastes like SHIT, and they switch, and then it has its peaks and its valleys, the dieting thing, and it's one of the biggest. You probably know how many, what that industry is. It's probably one of the biggest industries.
It is
probably.
It is. You're right, and also to point out, 2020 was the pandemic, which she was very popular in the beginning. But on the flip side of that, there was a lot of civil unrest. There was a lot of cancel culture that happened in 2020. The first part of what happened with her was more about her persona. And people, the generation my age and younger, are very sensitive to founders. If a founder does or says something that people don't like, they will not back a product. So in my opinion, whether people still would have used her product probably in the same amount, if not more, if she just said, here's a warning, or if she just said, this is a mistake, we are going to pull the product for a little bit of time. We're going to evaluate it. Maybe we could improve it. Maybe we have to fix some of our messaging. if she would have done that, people would have said, okay, you know, I think they would have bought into it. But when she started denying, anybody that deny, and just points the finger and calls me a liar and everyone else a liar and everyone's making it up and everyone's jealous, you know, that to me is what people got so turned off. So even if they liked her product and they didn't have any issues, I don't think they wanted to support her anymore. And, you know, it's not like she's suffering. She goes on vacation like every other week. You know, she might have lost money, but she's married to very rich guys. So she seems to be doing fine.
Okay, at least I don't have to worry about her.
I should have listened to Dad. He always said the only thing in life that matters is marry a rich girl.
He never said
He
that.
said it multiple times.
I am a church mouse.
He said he married a church
61
mouse.
years ago I
Said it was
married.
a big mistake.
Oh.
61 years.
That's a big
He never said that.
Carm, do you know what doxing is, Carm?
Doxing? No.
Okay. So doxing is when someone publishes your address and private information on the internet for the world to see. And this happens. So they say that the Emily Tanya feud is akin to Mean Girls, which was a show about mean girls, or cancel culture. Some accused Emily of trying to cancel Tanya effectively. And so there is doxing, anonymous hate accounts, trolling. You know what trolling is, Carm?
Yes.
That's good.
That already became like part of the vocabulary.
Part of the parlance. But so you at one point got like a very threatening message that said we had information that you were committed to a mental hospital. Like, how ugly did things get?
Oh, very ugly. I mean, some of her fans like threatened to kill my mom, and like they were threatening my friend and telling me my niece and nephew needed to be careful in their Jewish preschool. I mean, they really like were, and they still are, by the way. They have relentlessly, they're been these accounts that have been dedicated to relentlessly harassing me. They attack my brand partners. They threaten anybody that interviews me and wants to talk to me. I mean, it's endless.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. But to me, like, thank God, like, obviously there's always going to be people. Listen, there's always going to be people that are obsessed with being rich and skinny. That's nothing new. So there will be people that will idolize her no matter what she does. She could do no wrong. But because after the podcast, after some more interviews that I've done, and the more that they continue to threaten and harass me, I think people are not stupid. And they're like, why are you, you know, she promotes this account that like makes fun of my mother who is living with Alzheimer's. You know, they accuse me of elder abuse for posting a picture of my mother who is, you know, wheelchair bound. And like she, you know, your muscles start to like clamp up when you have Alzheimer's because everything breaks down. And I'm like, my daughter is one. I take my daughter to see my mother. That's her grandmother. This is, I want a picture of my daughter and my grandmother, or of her grandmother, and they accuse me of elder abuse. I'm like, elder abuse? This is what she looks like. Like, what do you want me to do? Dress her up as a doll and like, you know, try to make her do something like a trick? So it makes you, you know, people
This
are
is horrible. Yeah, horrible.
People are vicious though behind the screen. They're vicious behind anonymity and they're vicious behind the screen. They would never, I think, say such things in real life to my face, but they're bullies, you know, they're keyboard warriors, the bullies. I don't know.
That's another word. Keyboard warrior, Carm. All these things have changed.
No, they have changed.
Carm, I'm not far behind you. I took Pascal in high school. I cheated off Steve Isaacoff on every single test.
No, but I have to tell you, I every few, we have about 75
episodes
that we taped so far. And every now and then I announce that I'm suffering from paranoia, you know, on the edges. I call it. And when you talk like this, it's very scary because, you know, you don't know who will come after Joel and myself because we are on the internet. We are internet people also. And
Carm, you're a bit of a celebrity, but you get a lot of love. I get the hate.
I get a lot of love.
I get yelled at for being mean to her.
And every now and then they say, get that old woman out of
there.
There
was one great comment. I should have saved it and basically said
he loved it. He loved the insult.
They said I needed to put you out to pasture, that you were adding nothing to the show. Something along those
yes,
lines.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's fine. That's fine. As they didn't threaten to kill me, they can say that.
So, Emily, at one point, this is another interesting twist and turn in this saga. you got word from a woman who claimed that she had miscarried. Tell us what that was all about.
There's this woman, I don't like to say her name because she loves the attention and it's negative attention, and it really just detracted or attempted to detract from the story and the real victims. But she's had it out for me for years, and she got word of this story and that I was posting about it, and she came up with this plan. I don't know if she worked with Tanya or not. I'll probably never know, to claim that she had a miscarriage and she thought it was a result. She had high levels of lead in her blood work or something, she claimed. And she sent it in anonymously, and I was very reluctant to post it because it was coming from an anonymous page, but she wrote me all this stuff and it was very convincing. And I just thought, like, on what planet does somebody make up a story about a miscarriage? It's like, a lot of women go through fertility issues and it's very hard, and I just couldn't see a world where somebody made that up, but I was obviously wrong. And it came out when the New York Times published a story. So I found out the day before that this woman had made up this story and I had posted it. And look, like I said, there was nothing for me to reveal because it was revealed in the Times. And I said, like, I was so disappointed. Like, I made a mistake. I was duped. I think that it was a horrible attempt to distract from what really happened. It doesn't mean that just because this one person made up a story doesn't mean that everyone else made it up, because they didn't. I've spoken to these people. I've seen their medical records. I've seen stitches going down their stomach. Like, these are real people that have had real horrible side effects and experiences. And I know that it's real. And also, by the way, the New York Times and Wondery has a very extensive, as you understand, I'm sure as a journalist, vetting process. So they have huge legal teams, and that's their job, is to make sure that they cross they dot their I's, they cross their T's to make sure that these people, what I'm saying is true. So they went back and verified conversations, looked at records, looked at medical records. So they verified everything except for that story. And, it was unfortunate. It sucked. But I think it just makes her look like an ass and me look like I made an honest mistake, which I did.
May I ask you this? And I'm asking both of you. And truly, I don't understand, why is anonymity allowed? Because if anonymity is allowed on the internet, on let's say Instagram, even people who write us, write beautiful things, they're anonymous. What is that doesn't do anything? There is nobody there. What?
Emily, would you like to answer that? I have no answer.
I think so. It's a huge problem. I think that both Instagram, Facebook, and the authorities are probably working on it. They've done a shitty job so far. I think Instagram's defense is that protecting, and the way that they protect the information for an anonymous account is actually the way that they protect you and myself being a real account. Like, they protect your private information. It's a privacy law. Like, that's what they go behind. But, they're letting basically criminals run free on the internet. And that's a real issue. And I think that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, like, they're going to have to do way better. It's a real problem. People have organized, like, look what happened on January 6th at, like Capitol Hill. Like, those people were organizing through social media. And of course, it takes a huge bad thing until they're finally like, oh, we're going to go back and look at what people said and what they were doing. But there's no reason people should be allowed to bully people anonymously on the internet. I've tried to fight that fight with Instagram, but it's much bigger than me. It's going to take something horrible happening. But I think I saw this a few weeks ago. 2 parents of 2, I think, teen girls sued Instagram. I think there was a suicide or something like that, or there was something very bad happened. And so they're trying to take it up. And I'm sure, the internet is like the wild, wild west. It's kind of crazy. So I'm sure there's going to be change in the next, 20 years or so. I would imagine. I would hope.
Emily, so we have some real fans, dedicated fans out there. We got some questions with people knowing that you were coming on. So let's, if you're okay with a quick little lightning round of questions from our fans that you can answer. First one. And we kind of address this off the top, but the status of things right now, legally, professionally, so forth.
Yeah, something happened today. It just happened literally an hour before I came on here. There was some sort of class action lawsuit filed against Tanya Zuckerbrot on August 16th, and it's actually sitting in SDNY. So that, I don't know exactly what it is because it has to do with the American Disabilities Act. I heard that there's some things I think it could be, but
Emily, you buried the lead, as they say in journalism. This is supposed to, so what do you mean, a class action lawsuit against the F Factor or against her? You know?
Against Tanya Zuckerbrot Nutrition.
Okay. Hey,
so
Steve
I
Cohen,
don't
our
know.
producer, look into this. Okay.
It just happened, so we'll see.
Wow.
That's
and
new.
the defamation suit that's still winding its way through the courts.
Yes, there's two lawsuits. We're trying to combine them into one, but there's her too, my countersuit, which is to the first lawsuit, and they just starting to get to discovery, picking deposition dates, I guess. But I mean, the woman is never in the country, so that should be fun.
Next question. They want to know, how has this impacted your family? You alluded to the fact that you have a 1-year-old, you were pregnant through parts of this. How has it impacted your family personally?
I mean, there's been some hard days. It was very stressful, obviously. Maybe not obviously, but I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees as a result of defending myself in this lawsuit, which is a very unfortunate reality of how somebody who's very wealthy could use the legal system to silence somebody, which is why when my countersuit is claiming that her suit is what you call a slap suit, like intent to silence, to cover something up. I mean, it's been very stressful, but overall, my day-to-day life is amazing. Like I did not talk about this subject for the end of my pregnancy from like 6 months on because I just needed to focus. And then up until when my daughter was like 4 or 5 months old, we didn't even have any help. It was just me and my husband. And having a newborn is crazy. So I literally just was focused on surviving each day.
Surviving in a rough world.
A fellow survivor in a rough world.
It always comes back
because we always say, what are we about, Joel and I? It's like surviving in a rough world.
Yeah.
It's come full circle.
And, then I knew that the Wondery podcast was being worked on since last August. So I did my first interview for Wondery in August of 2021. And then I got heads up in about March of 2022 that it was coming out in this summer. So I knew that it was going to ramp up again. I knew that Wondery has they're the biggest podcast company basically in the world at this point. So yeah, I knew that it was going to come back around. So there's been some hard days, but a lot of like days where it doesn't affect my life like whatsoever. Thank God.
And you mentioned power and powerful attorneys. It's important to point out Tanya Zuckerbrot, from what I understand, hired Lande Davis. He was Clinton's attorney. He's a very high-powered, he's basically a crisis management guy. Is that daunting for you that she's got this guy on her side?
No, he's not her attorney anymore.
Oh, no? That was short-lived. What happened?
I mean, I could tell you off here what I think happened, but
okay.
No, and not only him, she had Dan Webb, who's another big attorney, and he's off the case too. And now she has some like regular guy from Lake Success, just some normal guy.
She's got like the guy from like Weinstein, Lefkowitz, and whatever. Anyway, So another question for you. This person says that you take to your live feeds quite often to address the online bullying that you've had to endure. Are you taking any legal action against the bullies? Is that even possible?
So this is to your mom's point from earlier. It's very challenging because you cannot sue an anonymous. You need to have someone's name to be able to sue them. You can't sue an anonymous account. I just got the name in the last 2 weeks of one of the people that has been behind one of the accounts that has like harassed me. So I am taking legal action against her. And I will eventually take legal action against the other one when I figure out for sure, I know I have the proof of who it is, but legally there's some workarounds that I have to do to be able to like take that action. But Yeah, I will. I will. It's a sad, I don't want to, but I'm going to, just because it's affected me financially. It's illegal to actually interfere with my business dealings. It's called tortious interference, where they send people to attack like a brand partner of mine or something. They're jeopardizing my income. And so, it's like they want to sue me for millions of dollars, but they want me to be broke. So like, how do they expect me to pay if I were to have to pay the millions of dollars if they go after all my brand deals? It doesn't exactly make logical sense.
Catch 22 there. Last question for you from the viewers. Are you still in contact with the real victims, the people who claim to have gotten sick from the powders? And do you think more are going to come forward now, A, because of this Wondery podcast, and B, because you're kind of speaking still anonymously on their behalf?
Yes, I speak to some of them every week, probably. Like, I hear from them. And then I did get actually one of the more severe allegations actually came through less than 2 weeks ago from somebody that got very sick and ended up having an emergency surgery, 27 stitches, like very crazy stuff. Like, so yes, I did think that I was thinking that people would feel like, okay, I feel safe now to tell my story because there's a bigger umbrella, like, Wondery, and people are hearing these, if you listen to the episodes, you hear people speak using their first name and talk about the intimidation that they were very scared to come forward because Tanya put everyone on notice that she's going to effectively, I guess, sue them all. So that was interesting. But yeah, and I do think more will continue to come forward. I don't think we've heard the end of it, probably.
Just 1 second.
Carm?
1 second. Do we have time?
100%. Go for it. My lovely mother. Go ahead.
No. There was this character there that's probably not a main character, but a very exotic story about this Ingrid woman. Ingrid?
Yeah.
That's where I fell asleep with the Fed Up podcast once Ingrid started talking about who is Ingrid.
I tell you who Ingrid is. Ingrid is a felon.
She's a felon? But didn't you get to know her?
She got in trouble like 20 years ago, I don't know, something like that, for some sort of mail fraud, like for selling jeans on eBay, and she had a business partner that didn't ship the jeans. She's another person that is involved in the dyed space. She also sells like a powder, but nobody, to my knowledge, has ever gotten sick from it. And also, the reason that she had a feud with Tanya is, like, again, embarrassing. I think Ingrid made French toast using these Gigi crackers,
and she got furious.
I mean, it's like it's stuff that you can't even imagine, like a 10-year-old fighting about it. It's so stupid.
That's like middle school stuff.
Carm, we got to wrap it in a sec, but Carm, let me turn to you for a second as a therapist, as a licensed therapist. I
have a master's degree in social work, and it calls me a license.
Carm, if you talk into give me this and talk into the
relax.
microphone.
I know.
Tell me, what do you think? What do you think, just in general, of these women who are? Emily, you have no idea what I go through. I tell her repeatedly not to touch the mic stand. She's blowing her nose. She's moving things. It's out of control. But this is, I guess, part of the
respect. You have to respect your elders. Respect.
Yes,
your
it's all part of the show.
Somebody says, "Is it a shtick?" I swear it's me.
Carm. So listen. What do you think of the fact that these women, and in New York City, I'm just going to say it, a lot of these jappy young girls, not all Jewish, plenty of non-Jews. I grew up dating these girls. But has it just gotten has it just gotten totally out of control with the diets, with the trying to keep up with the Joneses, with the 24-carat diamond rings, with the $22 million townhouse? Like, isn't enough at some point?
Joel, there is no just Manhattan.
It's in Miami. It's all over. But
this is a small segment of the population. I was not even near being a Jap. My daughter is not near being a Jap. My granddaughter. But I love the Japs. I really love the Japs, and I tell you why. They have style. They have intelligence. They're perky. They speak up. They are smart. really just make life less boring, basically. But when they become toxic jabs, that I don't like.
I should go to prison for having kids who are going to have to stop moving the mic stand.
Well,
I should I should go to prison for having children. Emily, thank you so much. This was awesome. Is there anything we can promote for you?
Oh, I mean, I have some fun stuff I saw on my website. That's on my link in bio. That's kind of how I pivoted to get away from the trolls because they can't affect my website. So if anyone goes to my Instagram page, they'll see the link in my bio.
Okay. And I'm going to, conversely, I'm going to reach out to you because you're a smart woman. I need some advice about how to get Kleenex and Ricola.
It's not a joke. You think it's a joke, and he just got inspired.
I think it's funny, but he's right. Like, you should get them to sponsor you 100%. I'm just
Emily.
laughing.
Let me ask you this: what do you think of our podcast? You can be honest. Is it crazy?
I like it. This was fun. Listen, also, like, first of all, I love to talk, and I enjoy always speaking to people that have more wisdom and knowledge, older than me, lived more, experienced more, that you learn from that. So I love that. So I think it's great.
By the way, let me tell you a quick funny story that has nothing to do with Japs or New York, but it has to do with everything with this. So my father is in the hospital, unfortunately, getting better. So I come home last night. I have two daughters who are at their first sleepaway with a pair of their friends, not at a sleepover. And I have a boy, and my wife is in bed with the boy, and she's like mesmerized staring at the TV. I'm like, she usually just like will fall asleep. She's watching the show on Netflix about matchmaking, Indian matchmaking. Have you heard of this?
Oh my God, my husband's client is on that show.
Really? So,
Mike, what's his name? Vinesh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? So the funny part about this is, like, I thought she was watching it for like 5 minutes. At one point, she's like, "Do you want the remote?" I came home. It's like 11:30 at night. I'm like, how long? She looked like in a vegetative state. She's been sitting there. I'm like, how much longer? Because I want to watch, like some crime show or something that's idiotic.
That relaxes him.
And she pauses and she's like, "Oh, there's 3 minutes left." And I look at the screen and it says season 2, episode 6. I'm like, "When did you start watching this?" She goes, 7:30. She was like, awesome show. You got to watch it, by the way.
All right, I'm not. My husband said he couldn't get through it, but I think it's not his client, by the way. It's someone he's in business with, but Mike, we're recording this. Could you not?
Maybe I'm the Jap. What's up, Mike?
He's holding Lily. She just came home from her dance class.
Okay, listen.
Emily, it was a blast. Thank you for doing this.
I enjoyed it.
The only requirement is I'm going to get you the link and you're going to send this to your Insta followers.
And you are doing the right thing with your mom because you stimulate her.
Yes.
So
God bless your mother.
God bless your mother. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Pleasure meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Be right back with the news schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
So that is a modern day. That's modern day warfare. It's called Insta influencers. It's you've seen the videos of like the elk and the deer battling with their antlers in the wild. That's what's going on with Tanya Zuckerbrot and Emily Gellis Lande. It's interesting. She broke news on our podcast that there was a class action lawsuit filed. Who knew? What do you think of all that? Crazy, right?
Well, I think that she genuinely, at least that was my feeling, that Emily genuinely was worried about this condition. And she very intelligently says that if they could have a dosage on these packagings, then people wouldn't, because they want instant solutions and they are basically addictive personalities, these dieters. Because like myself, I am fat because I am addicted to sweets. So these people who are trying to go on this fiber diet are probably fat, addictive personalities, and they don't eat the healthy amount of fiber. They overdose on fiber.
I got news for them. There ain't a pill in the world that's going to solve a problem. It's consistency and eating right, Carm. And those Oreos you had in the hospital last night ain't going to help.
They were my therapy against what was going on.
On to the news.
And I'm not apologizing for the Oreos. By the way, I left half of them.
I've kind of tailored the news schmooze this week to fit our Insta guest. So, story number one, of all the EU leaders to party with, you probably had the most fun with Finland's Prime Minister Sanna Marin. Have you ever seen her?
She's very pretty. I know you would say sex.
The Finnish newspaper Iltalehti reported Wednesday that in a new video posted on social media, the prime minister was spotted partying with several Finnish personalities, including MP Ilmari Nurminen and a media anchor named Tini Wickström. It was spread and leaked, this footage, on Instagram. Instagram, Carm. We just heard all about Instagram. You see her dancing exuberantly with friends. She had to respond to the media because of the backlash, which surprises me because in Finland, you think that they're pretty laid back. But in the press conference, she denied that she had used drugs and said that she had nothing to conceal or hide. She said that she was just dancing, singing, celebrating, and doing legal things, and that she was not even drinking heavily. I think if Joe Biden and Donald Trump partied a little more, things would be better. What do you think?
Well, at our age, meaning mine, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, it's a little bit harder to really party that much. In other words, we are old fogies.
This is another interesting story. When Shara Siegel,
I get it,
went through a breakup in the summer of 2020, she didn't just have to deal with the heartbreak, the devastating heartbreak, but finding herself single at 35 and in the height of COVID-19, Siegel, who lives in New York, she had to worry about whether the end of the relationship would also mean the end for her in becoming a mother. She said she knew it was going to be hard to meet someone. She said she didn't want to feel rushed or pressured to try to get pregnant. And so then she saw something on Instagram, on Instagram. And that person, that influencer, was documenting her egg freezing, Carm. And she was demystifying the whole egg freezing process. And she said, I want to do this myself and create a backup plan. And so during the pandemic, fertility clinics up till now, even after the pandemic, have seen a huge jump in interest in egg freezing procedures. Data suggests that in the U.S., egg freezing retrievals increased by 39% from pre-pandemic levels, and in the U.K., up as much as 50%. If you were 36 again, Carm, and just broke up with a man, would you freeze your eggs?
I advised many women in their late 30s to freeze their eggs.
So you're pro-freezing.
Totally.
By the way, my freezer and fridge just broke.
I know.
Both. I have 2 refrigerators, both done.
You're rich. You're rich in broken refrigerators.
The last one, Carm, is more for you. The silver revolution is upon us as naturally graying hair amongst women has become the new norm. Fashion magazine editor-in-chief Bernadette Mara says more and more women are embracing their gray, and aging is being celebrated on social media, on Instagram, like never before. And that comes following the announcement of the longtime Canadian TV national news anchor Lisa LaFlamme's dismissal, and there was backlash that they fired her because of ageism because of her gray hair. She stayed on the news desk until she was 77. Carm, I noticed you don't have gray hair.
Well, let me tell you something. There is a whole industry out there that I genuinely worry about if this happens, called L'Oreal or Pantene or what are some of the others? I can't think. They have aisles and aisles in CVS and
of hair coloring.
Of hair coloring. Can you imagine they would have to go out of business?
100%.
First of all, I don't think it's very beautiful on some women. On some women, it looks very elegant and classy and beautiful.
You think it looks beautiful on Anderson Cooper?
Is he an albino? No, really. No, he's very, 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 very white.
Even his eyelids, like his eyelid hair is light. His bigger problem is
I think you have a fixation on him.
Because I can't believe after the amount of time he's been on TV, he cannot spit a question out. He just cannot get a question out.
But what's the rush? What is this rush?
He has a 60-minute show. All right, Carm, we're running out of time. Speaking of the rush, we'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
We're in the grand finale here. 3 questions for Grandma. First one from ZZ Bug, 6 years old. She wanted to know, how do boogers form in your nose?
That's that liquid thing that leaks to your nose and hardens up dries out from the air. I think,
It's dirt particles. I think they get caught in your hair and in the hairs of your nostrils. Correct?
Well, I have no idea, by the way.
By the way, when you walk through my house, if you look at an eye level of approximately 2 feet, you will see specks all across the house. Judah and Zizi love to just stick their boogers on the wall.
No, that's so immature.
Immature. They're 6 and 3. I'm not doing it.
But you don't have to announce it.
On to the next question. From Vita Leah, who's very empathetic and compassionate. How come homeless people cannot make money so they don't have to be homeless anymore?
They have psychological impediments, like they are sad, or they have no self-confidence, or they have no profession, or
schizophrenia,
or racism would be the cause.
Parents that beat them and now they don't have
Yeah, they have a very poor self-image.
Yeah. Okay. Final question. This one also comes from Zizi
But this
Elise.
was a great question.
Yeah, from Zizi Elise. When you have a baby, how does your vagina hole open without breaking?
Sometimes it tears a little, and sometimes it's very stretchy, and it stretches.
She's been concerned. She's asked me this multiple times, and I told her not to even think about having kids. She's 6. Carm, that wraps it up for us on this episode. I hope you enjoyed the Instagram wars. If you want us to get you on our newsletter, drop your email in our comment section, and we'll make sure to get to you. Kleenex, Ricola, Metamucil, Miralax. Come for us. I'm coming for you. Love you, America.
Love you, America.